Hey friend, before we get back into the episode, I want to offer you something that might deeply support you right now. If you've been feeling stretched thin, if you're carrying that familiar fundraising anxiety, or if you're craving a moment to step out of the pressure and reconnect to yourself, I'd love to invite you into a brave and balanced breakthrough session. This is a live one-on-one coaching session tailored specifically to you. As a certified coach and former fundraiser, I work with you beneath the level of surface level mindset tools into the somatic and emotional patterns that shape how you show up, what you believe is possible, and ultimately the results you create. Most fundraisers walk away from this session feeling clearer, steadier, and more able to raise money with ease and freedom. Not because they changed their strategy, but because they got out of their own way and reconnected to their internal source of strength. Right now, this session is $97, and the price will be going up in the coming months. So if you've been thinking, I should do this at some point, let this be your gentle nudge to take action. You can book your session through the link in the show notes, and if something in you feels pulled toward this, trust it. That inner tug is your wisdom speaking. All right, let's get back into the episode. Have you ever had the quiet thought that if you don't raise the money for your organization, something bad is going to happen? Maybe programs shrink, maybe staff lose their jobs, maybe the mission you care about can't keep going. And somehow that pressure ends up living inside your body. Today we're talking about why so many fundraisers feel responsible for everyone's money and why that invisible pressure may be shaping the way you fundraise more than you realize. Welcome to the Brave and Balanced Fundraiser, the podcast I wish I'd had during my 15 years as a professional fundraiser. I'm your host, Erin McQuaid-Wright. This is your space to breathe, realign, and reconnect with the part of you that chose this work for a reason. Together, we'll explore tools and practices that help you show up less stressed and spread thin, and more grounded, brave, and on purpose. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. If you work in fundraising, there's a pressure that often sits quietly in the background of your day. It doesn't always get named, but you can feel it. It's the sense that the money, the budget, the programs, sometimes even people's jobs, somehow rest on your shoulders. You're the one making the calls. You're the one writing the proposals. You're the one sitting across from donors, looking them in the eyes, asking them to invest in the mission. And when the numbers come in, whether they're good or not, it can feel really personal. Today, we're going to talk about that hidden weight, why fundraisers often feel responsible for everyone's money, and how that pressure shows up in the nervous system and in the way we approach our work. There's a quiet story that many fundraisers carry. We don't always talk about it. It sounds something like this: if I don't raise the money, something bad will happen. And because of that, the work can start to feel less like inviting generosity from donors, and it can feel more like holding the entire system together. And that's a lot for one nervous system to carry. Early in my fundraising career, there was a year when one of our two major sources of income was cut, and that was government funding. And I know that might resonate with a lot of people listening right now because government funding has been bananas. It's been going away really quickly, being snatched out of budgets, and that can feel like the rug getting pulled out from under you. And that budget gap for me suddenly became very real. It's like the moment in a movie when everybody's sitting around a table, like a board is sitting around a table, and their heads just all turn to you. Nobody put that on my shoulders, but I could do the math. If our two major sources were government contracts and fundraising, and the government contracts got cut, well, that means fundraising is suddenly singing a solo on stage. And I remember walking into work each day with this thought that was running in the background. If I don't fix this, something terrible is going to happen. And the strange thing is, like I said, no one actually said that to me. It was a story I made up. But it lived in my body like it was true. And my shoulders were tighter, my stomach was clenched, and every donor conversation suddenly felt like it carried the weight of the entire organization. And that's when I started to realize something important. Fundraisers often carry emotional responsibility for money that was never meant to belong to one person. So let's unpack what's happening here. There are three forces that tend to create this feeling. One is proximity to revenue. Fundraisers sit closer to the financial outcome than almost anyone else in the organization. We need to be able to talk about the numbers in order to make the case that we need the support. So that means we have access to the budget, we have an interest in the budget, we have access to cash flow, and an understanding of where the gaps are so that we can tell that story. And most people in an organization don't get that kind of proximity. So when the money comes in, we see it, and when it doesn't, we see that too. And over time, it can begin to feel like our personal scoreboard. Ooh. Am I good or am I bad? Let's look at the numbers. And that is so toxic. And maybe that's a calculation you've done before. So another force that creates this feeling is mission-driven empathy. Most people enter fundraising because they care deeply about the mission, or they are able to learn about and fall in love with a mission and do the work from that place of love. We see the impact that those donor dollars make possible. And that means we also see the other side of the coin, which is what's at stake if the funding falls short. That empathy is beautiful, but it can also quietly turn into emotional over-responsibility. And then the third force that tends to create this feeling is nervous system patterning. When the brain senses something important is at risk, it moves into protection mode. And your body may start treating fundraising goals like a survival event. That's when you might notice you're breathing shallowly from only like your upper chest rather than breathing from your belly. It can feel like a constriction in your chest. There are more than 2 occasions in fundraising where I had chest pains, actual chest pains. I've never had chest pains in my life. Never before, never since. But in fundraising, that happened because I was so invested in the mission. I was so invested in getting what the organization needed that it was actually showing up in my heart as pain. Urgency in the voice, the tightness in the throat, racing thoughts about the numbers. These are all things that we can experience when we're in this pattern of worrying and over responsibility about other people's money, about the organization's money. And what your nervous system is trying to do is keep everyone safe, but it's doing that by assuming that the burden actually belongs to you. And really, does the burden belong to you? Really, I see that there's a powerful distinction here. Fundraisers are responsible for the process, but they're not responsible for the outcome of generosity. And they're certainly not to be judged whether they're a good or a bad person by whether a donor said yes or no, or whether a bunch of donors said yes or no. Donors choose to give. They make that choice. Organizations set budgets, they make that choice. Boards govern strategy, and the fundraiser's role is to facilitate connection and invitation. And when that boundary gets blurry, the nervous system can really start creating pressure it was never designed to hold. So I want you to pause for a moment, and I want you to just check in with your body. That's something you can do with your eyes opened or closed. I'm curious about where this shows up in your body. When you think about your fundraising goal or how much is left to raise, especially if you've got an event coming up or the next donor meeting on your calendar, do you feel tension anywhere? Maybe it's in the stomach or the chest or the shoulders, the jaw. Maybe your brow is furrowed just thinking about it. Just notice where it shows up in your body. Often that tension is your body holding a story that says, everything depends on me. And sometimes the most powerful shift we can make is simply remembering, I am a part of the system. I am not the entirety of the system. So what changes for you when you think about releasing the idea that the entire financial future of the organization lives in your body? What would be possible for you if you didn't hold on to that belief, if you didn't have that belief? Would you be lighter? Would you feel more happy or more free? When we're in a state of more happiness or ease, more lightness, when we're holding the work that we have to do with a little bit more lightness rather than the clenched fist, you might notice there's more creativity in donor conversations. There's more spacious listening. I don't feel the need to talk over somebody or jump right in with an idea like they're going to hang up on me. Maybe there's less urgency in your voice. Because when the nervous system settles, fundraising becomes what it was meant to be, a relationship, not a rescue mission. Before we close today, here are your takeaways from this episode. First, many fundraisers feel quietly responsible for the entire financial health of their organizations. If you felt that pressure, you are not alone. Second, caring deeply about the mission can blur the line between commitment and over-responsibility. Third, your nervous system may interpret fundraising goals as a survival situation, which can create urgency and tension in your body. Fourth, your role is to facilitate generosity, not to control the outcome of every gift. And finally, when you release the idea that everything depends on you, your body often relaxes, and your fundraising can become more grounded, relational, and sustainable. And guess what? Donors are going to feel more comfortable around you when you are feeling grounded. That's just nervous system science. We like to be around people who are calm. We get a little edgy around people who are a little edgy. So if this episode resonated with you today, I'd love to hear about it. Come join us inside the Brave and Balanced Fundraiser community on Facebook, where fundraisers are talking honestly about the inner side of this work. And if you know another fundraiser who might need to hear this message, consider sharing this episode with them. Because the truth is, you care deeply about the mission, but you were never meant to carry it alone. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.